The lights of Hollywood glittered, drawing in the NFL elite for the annual ESPY Awards, a red carpet spectacle of golden statues and designer suits. But as quarterbacks strutted under the cameras, a rookie named Shedeur was thousands of miles away, walking through the ashes of a burned-out Cleveland neighborhood. He wasn't there for the applause, the flashing lights, or the national television shoutouts. He didn't chase clout or squeeze into an overpriced tux. Instead, he skipped the glitz and glamour, choosing to spend the day with grieving families who had just lost everything. And the haters couldn't wait to tear him down for it. Why wasn't he at the ESPYs? He's just doing this for attention. A fifth-round rookie skipping the biggest night in sports? It's funny how a young black quarterback can be vilified for choosing purpose over performance, faith over fame. But that's exactly what Shedeur did. And as you're about to see, he didn't just visit the community, he brought it back to life. It started with a deafening boom. On quiet Monday night in Cleveland's southeast side, an explosion ripped through the Garden Valley neighborhood's Rainbow Terrace apartments. Flames spread like a curse, swallowing homes, memories, and lives in seconds. By the time the smoke cleared, more than 100 residents had been forced to flee. 42 families were left homeless, and 3 lives, a father and his 2 young children, were teetering on the edge of death. That father, now lying in a hospital bed with burns across 90% of his body, remains in a coma. His children, their skin scorched and futures uncertain, are still fighting. The trauma lingers in the air like soot, a stark reminder of the devastation. The city reeled. And as Cleveland City Councilman Richard Starr said through choked emotion, it's a whole family fighting for their livelihood. But outside of local news coverage and a few passing tweets, the NFL remained silent. The league that boasts billion-dollar community initiatives and PR campaigns about inspire change barely acknowledged the tragedy. No moment of silence, no tribute, no front office statements. For most, it was just another unfortunate blip on the news cycle. But not for Shedeur. He saw it all, he felt it, and he knew this was the kind of moment that demanded presence, not performance. What happened next would shock everyone. There's something unspoken that happens when a young, confident black man walks into space he wasn't explicitly invited to, especially one like Garden Valley, a neighborhood too often ignored, too often feared, and too often blamed for its own pain. Before Shedeur ever showed his face at Rainbow Terrace, there were whispers, warnings, folks telling him to stay away. It's not safe. That's not your job. Let someone else handle that. But Shedeur didn't listen to the noise. He listened to something deeper. God told me to come out here, he said without hesitation. So I'm never going to question his word. That wasn't a quote for effect. That was conviction. This wasn't some team-mandated community appearance. This was a divine calling, raw and real. And for a 22-year-old rookie quarterback drafted in the 5th round, still fighting for reps at camp to step into that role, that takes more than courage. That takes soul. He promoted the event himself on social media. No handlers, no press push, just a message. I'm pulling up, be there. And when he got there, he didn't just wave and leave. He stayed, he connected, he led. But it gets even more powerful when you see what happened next. Because he didn't just show up with words, he showed up with his whole heart and a football. This wasn't a ribbon-cutting ceremony. There weren't any podiums. No corporate backdrops, no team-sponsored photographers rushing to document every handshake. This was something far more real and far more rare. And the smile on his face. Over the course of 4 hours, nearly 1,000 residents of the Garden Valley apartments came together for what Sanders called the Garden Valley Fun Fest. But don't let the name fool you. This wasn't some feel-good charity drive. This was healing in motion. A day built for people who had been through a lot of pain. A day meant to remind them that joy had a place in their lives still. The kids, they didn't care about draft rankings or Instagram followers. They just saw Shedeur as someone willing to throw a spiral, race across the blacktop, and laugh when he got tagged. He tossed touchdowns to wide-eyed 7-year-olds. He blew bubbles with toddlers. He danced with grandmothers and lined up for cornhole like he was just another member of the neighborhood. He didn't wear designer gear. He didn't flex an entourage. He barely had a security crew, just a handful of video team members trying to keep a quick hug. Cleveland Browns teammate Mike Carl Jr. showed up too, but even he knew who the star of the moment was. It was Shedeur, not for what he did on a field, but for what he did with his time. He gave it freely, he gave it joyfully, and he gave it with humility. But as the DJ spun songs and kids played under the Cleveland sky, the murmur started again. Why wasn't this on ESPN? Why wasn't this a headline? Why were grown adults mad that Shedeur didn't show up to the ESPYs? The answer would say more about America than it ever could about him. Shedeur Sanders wasn't in Los Angeles. He wasn't in a tailored tux flanked by celebrities on the red carpet. He didn't take selfies under studio lights or give interviews to entertainment hosts asking about his biggest moment of the year. Instead, he was in Cleveland, on the blacktop in sneakers, tossing a football with kids whose homes had been reduced to rubble. And you'd think in a just world, that choice alone would earn him some universal praise. But we don't live in that world. As the photos of the Fun Fest trickled out, of Shedeur hugging elders, high-fiving children, sweating under the sun with real people, the criticism began to surface. Loud, petty, predictable. Some labeled it performative. Others mocked the idea that a fifth-round rookie would skip the biggest night in sports. A few even tried to twist the narrative, asking if Shedeur was committed to the NFL grind, or if he was too focused on media attention. Let's be honest, if this were a white quarterback, handpicked in the first round, showing up in a working-class black neighborhood with nothing but a football and a mission, he'd be on the cover of Sports Illustrated by now. He'd have a Nike commercial ready to roll. But Shedeur Sanders? He got shade. The irony is brutal. The ESPYs platform, supposedly built to celebrate courage, resilience, and leadership, ignored a moment that embodied all three. Shedeur's absence wasn't a protest, but it became one, a silent rebuke of a culture that values performance over presence, theatrics over authenticity, and yet, when asked about the backlash, Shedeur didn't flinch. Because the young man everyone doubts, he knows exactly what he's doing. If Shedeur Sanders felt disrespected, he didn't show it. If he was hurt that national networks barely acknowledged his choice to skip the ESPYs and uplift a shattered Cleveland community, he didn't lash out. Instead, he doubled down on something far more powerful than any social media rebuttal: purpose. When asked about the event, Shedeur's response wasn't defensive. It was composed, grounded, mature beyond his years. "I just wanted a day for everybody to get out here and have some type of enjoyment, excitement," he told local media. "Bring the family atmosphere back." And then, he said something that reveals more about his character than any stat sheet ever could. Sending money is easy, but you have to actually go out there and be in the flesh. That's a direct hit on the performative charity we see across pro sports and celebrity culture. It's easy to wire a check and post a black square. It's much harder to show up in a neighborhood that's still grieving, to look children in the eye who lost their home, to hug mothers who don't know where they'll sleep next week. Shedeur isn't worried about praise. He's worried about presence. He's not calculating the optics. He's cultivating impact. And when it comes to football, he's just as level-headed. As training camp looms, he isn't demanding first-team reps or complaining about his draft position. He's focused on mastering the playbook, soaking up wisdom from veterans, and letting his preparation speak for itself. "I got time," Shedeur said. Time to grow, time to learn. When it's time for me to play, I'll be ready. That level of poise isn't common for rookies, especially ones drafted in the 5th round. But Shedeur isn't built like most quarterbacks. His game is cerebral, but his heart is what's earning. Fans in Cleveland, people aren't just watching his arm anymore, they're watching his actions. When most rookies report to their first NFL training camp, the focus is narrow. Win reps, avoid mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, earn a shot at a preseason snap. But for Shedeur Sanders, the stakes feel bigger, not because he's chasing attention, but because he's carrying something heavier than a playbook. He's carrying expectations, doubt, and a responsibility that extends far beyond the Browns' practice facility. Yet despite all that noise, Shedeur remains locked in. When asked about the upcoming camp, his answer wasn't filled with hype or hope. It was filled with humility. "I got time," he said. "Time to be able to grow and mature, to understand the ins and outs of the defense. When it's time for me to play, then it's time." His game is cerebral, but his heart is what's earning fans in Cleveland. People aren't just watching his arm anymore. They're watching his actions, his presence in the city, his consistency as a teammate, and his refusal to let noise dictate his pace. Training camp won't be easy. He's competing with seasoned pros, learning a new offense, and trying to master the speed of the NFL. But while others scramble to go viral with deep balls and one-liners, Shedeur is taking a different approach. He's listening more than talking. He's soaking in wisdom from Joe Flacco. He's building trust in the locker room, not just with coaches, but with teammates who saw him show up in the community when no cameras were watching. Because here's the truth. In a league obsessed with flash, Shedeur is betting on substance. While others chase stats, he's chasing something bigger, meaning. And if that's his mindset now, before he's even thrown a pro touchdown, just imagine what he'll become once the lights hit. Legacy doesn't begin when you win a Super Bowl. It begins with the decisions no one asked you to make, the ones made off camera, without applause. And right now, Shedeur Sanders is quietly building one of those that goes beyond football, beyond stats, and beyond even his last name. Since arriving in Cleveland, he's made community work his signature. Before his jersey ever sold in stores, he was in classrooms. His first stop was John Marshall High School, where he told students, many of them black, many of them doubted, just like him, that he planned to bring a Super Bowl to Cleveland. That wasn't arrogance. That was belief. That was leadership. With the Rainbow Terrace fire shaking the community to its core, Shedeur showed once again, he's not just here to play for Cleveland, he's here to fight for it. This isn't a campaign. This isn't a PR rollout. This is the blueprint of a young man raised not by an NFL legend, but by a father who taught him that greatness is about what you give, not what you get. When Deion Sanders lit up the NFL, it was flash, fire, and flair. When Shedeur makes his mark, it's going to be quieter, but no less profound. Wear his. Wore gold chains. Shedeur wears responsibility. And while most rookies are focused on making the roster, he's focused on making a difference. You can't teach that. You can't coach that. That's who he is. The city of Cleveland may not fully realize it yet, but they're witnessing the rise of something rare. A quarterback who understands that his true legacy won't just be built on Sundays. It's being built every single day he chooses to show up while others don't. While the world chased trophies and spotlight moments, Shedeur Sanders chose something deeper. He showed up where others stayed silent. He played ball with kids who lost everything. He hugged grieving families. He didn't need cameras, just courage. Let the haters talk. Let the doubters nitpick. Because when the lights fade and the headlines move on, Shedeur is still in the neighborhood, still building trust, still becoming the kind of leader Cleveland didn't know it needed. And that's bigger than football. That's legacy.